All right, let's just get started, and then whoever comes in can join us. And that way we end on time and it's just respectful of your time. So let's get into it. All right, you guys ready? All right, I have a question for you, or 5 questions for you. But the first one, we'll start off easy. Would you rather spend the evening? There's no right answer, no matter what the final thing says. Uh, okay. Um, all right, then let's go to the next one. I'm still adjusting to all the random things that come up on the screen while I'm presenting like this. Okay. Somewhat, you guys are my guinea pigs in some ways. All right. So when you think about getting into a good college, what does that mean to you? A highly ranked university with just because they have a reputation for a reason, a university that plays to your team's vibe and interest, or really whoever has a good program and offers you money, or you're kind of lost, just no idea where to start. All right, so we are on the same page on this. It helps to know in advance because it helps me also tailor the presentation. I have an idea of which direction we're going in. Okay, then the one aspect of the college applications process that secretly terrifies you: standardized testing, writing a college essay, choosing the right universities, because what if you end up with the wrong one and then it's 4 years there, or figuring out the financial aid. Sleeves for this. All right. Yeah, there are actually over 2,000 options for your institutions across the country. So that's not surprising. All right. Universities only want students who have a lot of extracurricular activities. We're talking multiple sports, clubs, volunteering, jobs. Is that true or is that false? Okay, I'm glad everyone is chill on this one. Um, the final question. College applications process has you feeling panicking procrastination because avoidance, organized optimism, you feel we got this, coffee fueled chaos, or gosh, I wish somebody else would just do this for me. Make someone else do this, preferably my teenager. Okay, so we're a mix of both. All right, let's get out of this and let's get into the presentation. We'll get started. So, oh, now I'm gonna have to make sure that we turn off the music, otherwise we'll have that playing the whole PowerPoint. And you know what? Just as a backup, because I don't trust all the recording features, I'm going to see if I can get PowerPoint to also record. See what happens. Sure, let's have you record as well. All right. Let me guess. You can see click to add notes part as well? Or do you only see the PowerPoint with a circle of my head?
We did see the note thing until you erased it. Yeah, now it's gone. Now
Oh,
it's gone. Now it's there.
all right. We're gonna see what, but thank you.
Sure.
All right, let's get down to the information. So we all know, I mean, thankfully, first of all, thank you all for signing up for the newsletter. So I'm not even going to do this part of the intro because you already know who I am. Now, I think the main question that comes up is, yes, there are a lot of moving parts to this process, but what if it was simple? And what if it could be systematic? And no, you don't always have to hire help for this, but if you could do it in a systematic way, what would that look like for you? Okay. And that is something to think about as we go through this entire presentation, because I am going to make sure you have all the information you need to help you get through the summer and even through in terms of deadlines and checklists that you need to get done, even through the end of your application. So you will know what needs to get done and by when. And then it's a matter of actually spending the time diving in and doing it, which is a task of its own. But we can skip that part. You have. Okay. So we are going to talk first about the components of the college applications process. And You've probably heard of this one before. You've probably seen that slide before, but I think particularly because we are so close to applications at this point, applications open August 1st, that this section is worth reviewing. And as we close out the school year, we do need to emphasize a certain points of this college of those components. Before the school year closes out, we want to make sure we get some of the grades straightened out and whatever information from the high school while the college council or while the guidance counselors are still accessible and the teachers are still accessible. So we'll start there. Then we'll talk about your college list. What exactly makes a good college list? And if you're stuck and you don't know where to start, then how can you start your college search? All right. After that, we'll talk recommendations. Very important because we are into May and we want to get working on those. We want to get asking on those. So we'll talk about who to ask, when to ask, and what information to either provide on your own or make sure that your teachers have you filling out. Then college essays and supplementals. We always think about college essays when we think about writing for applications, but we tend to forget supplemental essays. We totally ignore them. It's not a thing for us. So now just want to make sure that we do acknowledge that there are multiple writing components on this, not just your college essay, but also the resume, the additional information section is another one. And we'll do a separate call on this probably around August or in August, going through the entire application. So don't worry, I've still got you on this, but for now, we're just going to leave it to the college essay and supplementals. Then we'll talk about interviews. What exactly are they? Who gets interviewed? And if you need to sign up for an interview, how does that work? And finally, we're going to organize all of this and so much more, the SATs, etc., into a timeline so that you can approach this systematically and plan your vacations around this or any kind of family events around the college applications process. So at least in theory, your teenager has a social life while also navigating this process. I say that in theory thing because the teenagers will carve out time regardless of what there is left to do. And sometimes the issue ends up being pulling them back from their social life and their friends to get them to do the work itself. So all right, components of the college applications process. Like I said, this may be a review, but let's go through with it. Now, first step is coursework. Within coursework, we have the unweighted and weighted GPAs. And at this point, it doesn't matter which GPA your high school actually submits or what calculations they do, because a lot of universities will take your transcripts and recalculate those GPAs by pulling the classes they genuinely care about, the 4 years of math, science, English, social studies, foreign language, and might be missing something in there, but the core classes essentially. So if let's say you're at you have a class on pottery making or jewelry design or something of that sort where it's a creative class, it's fun and it's an easy A, chances are that class may not actually get considered for in the GPA that the university calculates. So that's something to note. Now, the best thing you can do is simply get your GPA above a 3.0 and as high as possible. So if you're talking on a 4.0 scale, aim high. And if we don't have a 4.0 scale, we have a scale out of 100, then again, you're aiming for an 80 or above. Ultimately, you want mostly A's and a few B's on your transcripts. And then the universities can choose to recalculate however they want. We have no control over that whatsoever. All we can do is simply look at the grades and say, hey, A's and B's, this cannot go poorly for me in any way. Okay. So if right now, because currently we have APs running and next week, or not next week, in a month, we're going to have finals coming up depending on the high school. And for those who don't have finals, we have final projects coming up. So no matter what it is, try to end this entire year strong, because universities don't see the quarter by quarter by quarter breakdown. They only see that one final column of what your final grades are in that class. Okay, so that very, 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 very important. And particularly the grades in the higher level classes, so the AP classes, a lot of AP students actually took their final before they started the APs. And that's what APs generally tend to do. They will, because students just don't care about their AP classes after the exam, it's going to be hard to get them to take their final seriously. So a lot of teachers will have that final mock AP exam that students take actually be their grade for their final. All right. So AP classes, honors, IB, which if you're in the local area, if you're like in Reading, if you're in Wilton, we don't have the IB program here. And I believe the nearest one is in Norwalk. And yes, the nearest one is in Norwalk. So if the high school doesn't offer a certain program, then we're not responsible for it, and that's okay. All right, that's just something to be clear on. And that also works for AP classes. So as an example, Barlow here in Reading only lets 10th graders take one AP class, and then juniors and seniors can take the AP classes. Wilton, on the other hand, allows students to take whatever AP classes they can handle and are approved by their guidance counselors. So at the end of the day, Wilton students compared side by side, applying to the same university, similar demographics, everything else the same. If these two students were next to each other in their profiles, the Wilton student's going to have a higher number of APs taken, right? More college credits. Well, does that count against this kid who didn't have that opportunity available? No, it doesn't. And that's something that we don't have to worry about. And I'm in this peace of mind on this. Okay. It's just a good peace of mind to know that if it's a school problem or it's a school offering or lack of offering, then it's not going to count against you. Now, if your high school does offer it, depending on the tier of university you would like to go to, we'll probably talk about this later in the college search section, but since we're talking grades and choosing classes and such, depending on the tier of university, so if we're talking, again, the Ivy Leagues or equivalent, like the Tufts, and now it seems like even the universities that weren't competitive before are more competitive. But let's say UMass Amherst and so on. Well, yeah, they may want to see a few more APs that the student has actually tried taking APs as opposed to a series of standard and maybe a few honors classes, right? They want to see that you are willing to challenge yourself. So in that, it is important. Now, I know that our high schools, local high schools at least, don't do class rank anymore. So once again, that is a school's choice. Therefore, we can leave that blank on the application. It is not our problem. SATs, ACTs, we are going to talk about this. It's on the timeline so that I know actually we have a very small call. So maybe you can unmute yourselves or type it in the chat. But are we done testing? Are we in the process of testing? Have you gotten the score that you'd like from that March exam or prior, or are we still in the process? Is that and you can type it in the chat, no, whichever works for you. But if you're still in the process of testing, we're going to cover a few dates that you can still sign up for next year and how long you can test for. So don't worry about that. The main thing is, I know a lot of families still are hoping that, oh, if the university is test optional, then we don't really have to worry about it too much. Or we would like to have a list of colleges that are test optional. And at this point in time, more and more universities have been rolling back their guidelines. So we do have a cautious approach to testing or submitting test scores, and that, or testing actually, which is that we should take the test. We should have scores on file, and we should have scores we are happy with on file. All right. Because it's hard to create a list of 8 to 12 universities. They're all test optional and they all have the program that we want. And we're all going to love the campus that this university has. And you don't want to simply take off a university from your list because they're not test optional. So that is something to keep in mind, because that's something I faced last year when we were going through this. And I actually am doing this presentation now because last summer was a bit of a struggle when students came in and we were scampering. We had to get a college list together. We had to get everything from scratch practically together, including test prep, which they signed up for courses and I was working with them on figuring out the university's list, etc. And a lot of students were depending on the fact that, oh, it's going to be test optional. We'll be okay. And sometimes they had to give up the universities they genuinely like the programs of because their test score didn't live up to that. And we don't want you in that situation. Okay. So please plan accordingly on that. Next step, personal. So this is actually the last summer that you have your teenager. Sorry. Oh, I was going to say someone say something. This is the last summer that your teenager has to pull their application and their extracurriculars together. So this means that if there is a way that your teenager, and you might have, again, this may not even be new information to you, but you just needed a refresher when it comes to that topic. But if there's a project that your teenager can come up with that shows initiative, that shows that this teenager doesn't simply sit around and wait for opportunities to come to them, that they were willing to create their opportunities. Maybe it's leadership, but really it can be a way to serve the community. Again, the idea is to show initiative. If there is any kind of project that they can come up with, then that would be great on a college application. And examples of this. So let's say your teenager's really into sports. I have a student right now, he's technically a sophomore, but I've had a few people do something on the lines of this, which is he is planning a cleats drive. So he really, really loves soccer. This is the athlete. And is trying to figure out how to host a cleat drive. Who's going to be the recipient? Where are we going to be collecting cleats? How long for? How are we marketing this so that people actually want to donate and do end up donating cleats and all of this? So this project doesn't exist. It's not through some kind of organization that he's just volunteering with. He has to create this project, run it for a month, 2 months, however long he chooses to. He picks the timeline. He has to figure out the marketing. He has to figure out who's then going to help him haul all of this to the beneficiary, and then ultimately maybe even run it again another time in the same year. And that's showing initiative. Okay. Another student right now, she started basically a version of like women in business. Not a full student organization, but she basically wants to bring in speakers, women in business. So women who have been working in the industry and can guide high schoolers. And this is once a quarter, hasn't been too long at this point, but she's basically trying to get females interested in business and get an idea of, hey, in the workforce right now, what is it that we want? And what can girls who want to go into this business or corporate setting expect? And how do we progress? And what skills are recommended? And so on, obstacles faced, etc. So she's learning interview strategy. She's learning how to pull these individuals together, reaching out to them on LinkedIn, and what message is she trying to get across to her audience, which right now, honestly, the last time she did a Zoom, it was me, her mom, I think a friend of hers, and the speaker, right? So clearly it was a good start. The fact that she started is the big deal, but she has to now keep it going. So that's her project. So think about anything where your teenager can take the extra step, show initiative, or if there is a certain job and you probably maybe saw this in the last email I sent out last week, I believe, about how you make more of the extracurricular that already exists. So if your teenager's already working at Tuscan Cup or a coffee shop, okay, great. How does a business work? How does that business have employees come in? How do they have customers come in? Who are their customers? What age group are they aiming for? Starbucks probably aiming for the younger demographic with their cool, colorful drinks, but then Tuscan Cup is a very low key vibe. And if you live in the area, you might know Tuscan Cup, but it's a very low key vibe, right? So that's for someone who wants to sit and just hang out. So think about that, but maximize the effort around the extracurricular. Put in the effort. And parents, don't organize this for your teenagers. Make sure the teenager is doing this. All right, then honors and achievements. In this case, honors and achievements are just going to be the honor roll, National Honor Society, any kind of internal high school project that may have received recognition also counts. Of course, college essay and supplementals, that has a slide of its own. So we're going to skim over that for now. Recommendations has a slide of its own, interviews, and demonstrated interest. Okay, so demonstrated interest, let's talk about a little. Now is a very good time to follow the universities you are interested in on social media, whichever social media. It could be Instagram, could be YouTube, could be TikTok. A lot of these universities have put in the effort of staying on top of the current social media trends. So follow them on that. Make sure you're opening the emails at this point, because I'm assuming everyone on this call has a rising senior. You've been bombarded with emails and mail from these universities. If it's mail, you do what you'd like to do. Possibly everything ends up in the recycling bin, but for the emails, make sure that your teenager is actually opening those emails, even if you hit like select all, mark as read. Some of these universities do have a red receipt that goes out, or a report that goes out. So just that way they can tell who opened it. And then if you happen to have time, then we'll talk about this on the university, finding the university slide. But when I mentioned that we should be doing research on the university, see if you can get on the university's website through their email links, the embedded links, because some universities do track not only who clicks on the links, but also how long do they spend on that website, on a university's website after they've clicked on the link. So really stalkerish. I know it's one of those things where you don't want to spend too much time thinking about because it is creepy. But ultimately, try to make sure that you are now trying to build some kind of engagement with the university. And another good thing to do is reach out to the local representatives. So, a lot of high schoolers, and definitely when they're a senior year, they'll be going to a lot of presentations, college presentations. And at that point, we want to make sure that your teenager's noting down the name of who the presenter is introducing themselves, even if the presenter doesn't remember, because they are meeting so many teenagers, but go ahead and introduce yourself. And then if need be, just get a contact info, you just an email address. And that way, if you have any questions in the future, you have a person to reach out to. For some of these universities, particularly for the smaller universities, these marketers, these individuals who come into your high schools are also your admissions officers. Okay, because in the busy season, they're working through the applications. And then in the off seasons, they're doing the marketing and reaching out to universities and interacting with high schoolers to get a pulse on what's happening and to promote the university. All right, any questions so far on anything? No? Are we all still here? Still good? Is this helpful? Let's see. Okay. All right, cool. We'll just keep going. Key points when you are looking at the university, because as you indicated in the Kahoot, it is a concern that you may not, maybe you make a bad choice. Okay. I have students do a lot of research when to figure out if a university deserves to be on their college list. And these are a couple of points that we mentioned. Now, have I had students who haven't done this level of research? Yes. Every summer, when I have students who come in for their college essays and we have not built a college list together, we haven't done any planning, but we're starting off with your college essay and we work on your supplementals. What happens is some of those supplementals will ask you why us. So supplementals are these additional questions as a part of the application some universities have. And some of those questions end up being why us? And I don't find out that this university is not a match until I ask, and that the students haven't done any research on this university until I ask the student, why did you pick this? Why is this on your college list? And I have had multiple students across the years tell me that they picked a university to be on their college list because they did a college tour and the university was pretty. That's not enough. And then we actually have to reverse. So now they came in with the intention of me helping them with the college essay. And now we have to take it a step back, which again, it's not that I have an issue helping you with that, but it's more of that now when we hit the summer, everything becomes a little more time sensitive because the deadlines are coming up, right? So now we have to pivot backwards and the teenager has to say, okay, well, we have to have this conversation of what do you would like doing? What is it that you think you want to do? I had one student say that she really wanted to work with children, child development, child counseling, something of that sort. She didn't know the specifics of where she would land on that. But when we went through her university list, out of, I think she had 9 or 11 universities on her list, at least 4 had no real child development anything. So they were on her list because she did a college tour and it was pretty. Those universities were pretty. Every time that this happens, every time hers, actually, there was one student. Oh dear, I remember this. We had to delete her entire college list. She had 8 universities, and we had to delete her entire college list because when we talked about what she was interested in, not one of those universities had an in-depth program. They might have it's a minor, it's a precursory, like an intro type thing, but it's not a fully developed program in this area. And we had to delete her entire college list while simultaneously working on her college essay and finding her a whole new list of universities to apply to that fit that criteria. Now, this happens every year. Now, deleting the whole list is a very extreme, that's a rare case scenario, but every single time I work with students, we have to delete one or two, three universities off their college list and find replacements. So as you go through this, and because you have time right now to find the universities and do the online research, and then starting in July, you can do some of the college tours depending on how much time you have. It's not, you're not obligated to do college tours, but you can, should you choose to. But there's time left if you still, basically, this is a good time to sort of start crossing the T's and dotting the I's. So let's see what you're supposed to look at when you do a college search. Number one, think about the career paths. If your teenager doesn't know what it is they like doing, I have students go through the list of majors at multiple different universities and just listing out everything they like. That could, and the criteria is we need to have a minimum of 3 majors you are genuinely interested in. Not just because you looked at the title of that major, thought it was cool, and maybe your favorite character on TV show is majoring in this, but we want you to look at the classes that this major will also involve. So you're not just looking at, oh, cool, criminal justice. That sounds super neat because we're super into criminal minds or into and I want to be a criminal profile. I've had students like that. True stories. All of these are true stories. And some of the examples that you might think are exaggerated, it's happened. Okay, it's happened. So I'm pulling from real life. But yes, whatever it might be, make sure that your teenager's looking at the list of classes, not just the title itself. Okay, if they want to go into law because dad's a lawyer, mom's a lawyer, great. Just make sure we're looking at the pre-law classes and checking to see if that's actually interesting, or is this something you're saying as a teenager because that's one of the 10 careers you think exist out there and you don't know that there are hundreds more. All right, so look at the classes that you'd be taking for whatever majors. And then you also want to look at how is this university going to help you figure out what it is you're going to enjoy doing, which means it could even be from the career center. Now, career centers can go 2 ways. They can definitely help you with your resume and the basics of that at minimum. All right, so yes, you have that job search aspect, but a lot of universities will have one-on-one career counseling. And from there, they will be able to help you, depending on how robust a university's program is. Some universities do the bare minimum, and some are just full on. We're going to do career counseling, and then we're going to hook you up with an alumni or a few alumni. You'll get to talk to them and figure out what careers they're into. They match whatever your personality profile says, and you get to learn more about it, right? They go above and beyond. Some will also have job fairs, will have their own job databases, will help you with your complete resume, not just, there's some universities when it comes to your resume stuff, they'll simply say, hey, here are a bunch of videos for you to watch.
Yes.
Sorry?
Yes, honey.
Um,
Yeah.
oh, I see. Okay. Oh, and she accidentally exited. No worries. Okay. So either way, some universities will do the bare minimum based on whatever funding they've actually allocated to this department, and some will go full on just trying to help you out. The other thing is most students never walk into the career center, which I think is it's a waste of a resource that you're already paying for. So most students, over 90% will not walk into the career center because they'll just figure it out based on what they heard friends are doing or the classmates who are a year older than them are doing, that kind of thing. Just make sure you know what you have available to you. And that way, should you decide to walk in or not, you know it exists. Okay. All right. Then, of course, any kind of support academically, what happens there, any study abroads, which I will say for study abroads, even if you're looking at a small university, smaller universities will partner with usually larger state universities to ensure that you get to go abroad. All right. So you're not going to miss out on an opportunity because you chose the small liberal arts college instead of this bigger university that had way more study abroads on their website. Not always the case. once you go to the study abroad office, tell them where you'd like to go, what your major is. They will try to figure out how to launch you into that country. Okay. So that one, that's cool. Now, co-ops, if you are, again, I've had actually, I think a few students who this year chose to go to Drexel because they really like the co-ops. Northeastern, they got in, but Northeastern wasn't offering them enough money. And actually, seniors this year kind of got a little well, it sucked for them. I have to make sure I'm recording this call, but yeah, it sucked for them because their college decisions came out at the same time that we had a few policy or a few political moves in the educational department, which led to some research canceled research funding, and universities are scrambling for money and they're reorganizing. And while universities are scrambling for money and tightening their budget and reallocating their funds, this is when the seniors who were kind of hoping to get more aid from universities were finding out about their decisions. So it was a really unfortunate clash. But ultimately, I think most students are happy where they ended up. But there are universities like Northeastern, Drexel, they're known for their co-ops. With that said, a good chunk of universities will have co-ops. Now, co-ops, by definition, universities will have you assign you work. So in a company somewhere, they'll find you work in the field of your study, and you will be getting paid for it. So you're getting experience and you're getting a salary, and you are not a full-time student that semester. Okay, you're not a student that semester, you are full-time employed. It's a good way to figure out if you genuinely like that field you are studying in. And it's a good way to build experience. So even if graduation is delayed by a semester or a year, remember, you as the parent are not paying for that delayed, the extra year that your current teenager, then I guess will be young adult, will actually be making money themselves. Okay. And they're getting experience. So they are building their resume. So there's a pros and cons in that you might be graduating a year late, but you walk out and you have experience. So you're not stuck in this catch 22 once you graduate of, I don't have enough experience for these jobs, but I have, I just graduated, etc. All right. And finally, of course, be sure to know what support is available mental health wise, anything from anxiety, ADHD, depression, any kind of cognitive or physical differences. Just make sure that that university has the right support for you, because you don't want to get there and then find out that this doesn't exist, that you thought it did, that this one conversation with this one person or the two conversations with these people, just you thought it existed and then you find out that it doesn't. It's a good idea to contact the disabilities department to make sure, and the counseling centers, if that's what is necessary and what you're hoping for. Make sure you just contact the departments. And when I say you, I mean the teenagers. The teenagers, you can, as parents, you can help them create a list of questions that they should be asking, but it should be the teenagers making all contact with the university. All right. And by the way, any questions at any point, just let me know in the chat. I am keeping track. So any questions before we dive into recommendations? I think we're doing pretty good on time too. Okay. Is everyone still there? Yes, I see responses in the chat. Okay, cool. Thank you. I wanted to make, sometimes it's one of those where with Zoom and with the black boxes, we don't get the facial cues, which I got so used to it since COVID that when I had an in-person presentation last month at the Stanford Library, when I was getting the facial reactions and I was able to read the room, it's like my mind just spazzed out because I was looking and there were only 5 people in the room, but it was just a mind warp because I would look at the individuals and be like, oh no, are they bored? Oh no, should I tell a joke? I don't know a joke. Okay, well, what do I talk about now? But we're talking about SAT stuff. I'm like, but this stuff is dry and boring. I don't know how to make this cool. So it's just like a too much information glitching type of thing. So I've gotten so used to just the black boxes on Zoom. All right, circling back to this. So with the recommendations, you not only want to ask a minimum of 2 teachers, you ideally want those teachers to be junior year teachers. And if necessary, sophomore year teachers. No freshman year teachers. Okay. We want individuals who genuinely know your teenager, so you are not sending a generic recommendation, something that ChatGPT might have generated, or something that the teacher can just name swap and just swap out the names of the teenager, and it could be for anybody. We don't want that kind of a recommendation. Okay. So again, at least 2 teachers, and ideally from 11th grade. If not, then we can have one from 11th grade and one from 10th grade. Now, I'm going to answer a question here that I get very often, which is, okay, but if I want to, if, so my teenager wants to go into medicine, does that mean that we should get the biology teacher to send in a recommendation? And that depends. I would say yes, if that's what's going to make this application stronger and your teenager is very directed towards, let's say, biology as an example, but whatever academic field it might be, then yes, one can be from there. And then I would say one can be just completely different. So if you're, let's say, going in biology, maybe the next recommendation could be an English teacher. Okay. And we want to provide as many angles to you as possible, but at the same time, want to make sure that you are geared in a certain direction. So you don't want to overwhelm with just, oh, this was my chem teacher and then this was my bio teacher. Because great, we already know how you do in science. We saw, let's say, the AP classes you've been taking, or we saw the grades in those classes. And now your extracurriculars are also in that direction. Not a bad thing, but let's see some little bit of a different side to you. So when it comes to applications, it is important to angle yourself correctly. But at the same time, you want to mix in oh, wait, there's more to this kid than this one interest as well. So this is how you can also go about doing that. Okay. Now, after that, you do want ask 2 other people. Usually most universities will say 1 other, but it's always better to have 1 extra recommendation. And then maybe you need it for a scholarship application. Maybe you need it because the university says, oh, you can send in 1 teacher and then 2 other. So it varies by university. So it's nicer to have 4 recommendations and then just send in 3. And you can choose from coaches, community service directors, job supervisors. There is a friend and peer category that you can also have. There's a clergy person and just random. Oops, go back. And random is kind of fun because this is also where your creativity comes in, because you could have, so the fun ones I have read about as well from other college counselors. So they might have had, let's say, a barista at Starbucks from wherever my student, or that their student rather, goes to. And that barista just has gotten to know them through just this relationship of going to Starbucks. And that's so random because a university admissions officer is not expecting that plot twist of they're expecting all the other ones, but they're not expecting the barista, or they're not expecting the janitor's recommendation, or they're not expecting, honestly, like, just somebody you met. It's so find someone who you don't think is, like an ice cream shop owner, but somebody who could be completely random. And then that might also be a completely random, but you have built a relationship because they still do need to know you and well enough to write a genuine recommendation. But that can also be the creative piece. Now, with that said, again, think about what it is that your teenager's applying for, what school of business, school of medicine, it could be undecided, and that's okay. In that case, you want to go for the entertaining application. If you are academic, picked an academic side, then you want to angle your application and tailor it accordingly. All right. Any questions on this one so far? Okay. And while you might be typing this up, now is a good time to ask for recommendations. All right. Now is a good time to ask for recommendations. Why? Because as teachers wrap up the school year, they're not going to be writing these immediately. But if you ask now, a lot of teachers will have these extra documents that they'll ask you to fill out. And it's just a way to get them to get to know you. It's for them to get to know you. It's just going to be, And it varies by teacher, but usually they'll ask you, hey, what are 3 words you'd use to describe yourself, your favorite experience, obstacles you might have faced, any career goals you might have, what impact would you like to have, that sort of thing. So you want to make sure your teenager is asking now and submitting that to the teacher before the school year ends. Okay. So now, in terms of requesting, we've now done our parts, requested the recommendations. We have put a nice little, we filled out any kind of paperwork that needs to be done from our end. It's wrapped up with a nice little bow on top. We're not forgetting something. So just keep that in mind. Now, the other aspect is don't follow up with them until about August. So leave these individuals alone. Now, if a teacher has already given you a form to fill out, by all means, you're done. You don't have to actually send in any more information unless you feel the teacher should know about it. But if the teacher does not have a form of their own, make sure you write up at least 3 to 5 bullet points of memories, interactions, career goals, whatever it might be, just to help that teacher have some content that they can write about you. All right. Because remember, teachers care. They are doing you a favor. This is not a part of their job. So, and they're going to be taking time out of their personal to be writing these recommendations for you. So you want to make sure you're making their lives as easy as possible by providing the information that they would need. Then we would not be following up until August. And after that, we can start follow-ups every other week. But a lot of teachers, if you've done your work correctly, they will usually have the recommendations ready to go in September. And that's great because a lot of deadlines actually are not until either October 15th, need to November 1st, November 15th. And teachers will get this done if you have given them long enough to do so. So that's how the timeline on this works. All right, college essay. So I think at this point maybe you're familiar with the college essay, maybe you're not. The prompts for the college essay are already out. In fact, let's actually take a little break and from the PowerPoint and go to those now. We're done with the Kahoot. Hey, whoever's gray dog won. Either way, which that's not true because none of these had a right response. But okay, so I was going somewhere with this. Oh, Common App, college essay. I'm showing you what I'm typing into Google so you know how to get to it. And then the prompts thing pops up. Here are the prompts. I'm actually going to take it a step further and just send you this link in the chat. So everyone will have this. And they're the same prompts as last year and the year before that and the year before that and the year basically for the last 5 years. They've been the same prompts. And then 5 years ago, they changed one prompt. But this has been the same, these set of prompts for about 20 years. So it's just going to be background, identity, interest, talent you'd like to share, any lessons from obstacles you've encountered, reflect on a time you've questioned or challenged a belief, name a time when someone has done something for you that made you happy or grateful, and how did that impact you? What did you do? Accomplishment, event, or realization that sparked a period of personal growth, and what happened? And how did you change, basically? Any kind of topic or concept you find so engaging that you lose all track of time. And then finally, which this exists everywhere, or has existed from the beginning, share an essay on a topic of a choice, on any topic of your choice. All right, so these are the prompts. They've already been out, and now you have access to them as well. Minimum is 250 words. If you try to write less than that, the application will be marked as incomplete. It's not going to let you send. 650 is the maximum. If you try to go over that, the actual application will cut off all extra words, which that's been a funny little gymnastics thing where we have to be like, how many words can we take out? This essay is perfect. Now, how do we take out the 5 extra words? What are the 5 extra words? So we usually have to do that. That's our problem. It's never that we've been under the word count. It's always we're way too over. And now we've consolidated. And oh no, we're over by 10 words. We're over by 15 words. We're over by 2 words. Which 2 words here can go or turn into contractions? So just, again, note. And then we covered. All right. Then, of course, as I mentioned earlier, some universities tend to have supplemental essays. Can have none, can have up to, yeah, I've seen actually quite a few. 5 is max, but 7, 8, I've seen them. But at that point, some universities don't have a college essay and they just have a lot of supplemental. They're just a series of supplementals. But on average, about 1 or 2 is what is most frequent. And questions could be anywhere from why us to if you could solve a world's problem, what would it be? To if you were an object, what could it be? What would you be? They might give you a paragraph of either a speech from the founder of the university or a motto that the university believes in, and then ask how you connect to some part of it and write that up. And usual word count tends to be 150 words to 500. I think I've seen. I'm trying to think of the last year's cycle because in between application season, just so much happens or that there's like a flow to it. So by the time you're in testing land, you kind of forget about the minutia of the applications and so on. But I believe last year we had more so with the 150 to 250. Maximum we saw was the 500. Used to be we had like a 700 word, but some of those universities cut their word count down. So 150 is about a paragraph, 250 words about two paragraphs. And again, the issue that students tend to have is they want to go over the word count, and there just aren't enough words to do that. With the universities asking you why us, as we talked about in the university research slide, the points that I mentioned, the 5 main points, those are the ones that you want to expand on. Now, you're not going to have word count for everything, so you pick your most important, usually academics, because that's the main service that the university provides. So you want to say, here's how my interest in a certain academic connects to the program that you happen to have designed. Okay, so that's the supplementals. Again, these take a while to write. Sometimes they can be surprises because they're located somewhere on the app that's in a tab, within a tab, and you find out when you're filling out the application, not when you did your precursory look of what the writing components are. So I've had students where every year this happens, where I repeatedly say, check every tab, because they're all categorized differently. A university gets to decide the layout of their application, not the common application platform itself. So universities will put like subtabs, and then within that, somewhere in there, some might have their supplemental essay under the general section. Some might call it an additional requirement. Some might have it under academics. So you never know where they're going to categorize these. So just it's important that you look, because you don't want this as a nasty surprise later on when you also, or when your teenager also has extracurricular activities going on, they have the grades to keep up and other maintenance basically to get done. Okay. And so a question in the chat, which I think is important to mention, can you start your supplemental essay? And I'm actually going to expand it and say your college essay as well. So can you basically start any part of your application, written component, everything, stop working on it, save it, and then go back to it? The answer is yes. However, I highly recommend writing your college essays and supplementals on a Google document or a Word document. And that way you can just see the full layout. You can figure out, you can word count prior to just copying and pasting into the box. And then finally, when you do copy, so that's what I do with my students, is we will just do everything on a Google Drive. That way parents can see it. Obviously, I can see it and teenagers can see it. And then I can keep track of everything even midway through. If they edit on a document, the notification goes to my email and my phone. So yeah, summer's fun with all the alerts, but it goes, I'm aware of the changes happening. And then once we finalize something, then we'll simply at the end just copy and paste this part that goes here, this part goes here, this part goes to this part of the application, and then we're done. So it's easier to hit submit. But that's usually my recommendation. You don't, or if you'd like to write directly on the application, that's fine too. Couple of resources. So I just sent you the college essays prompts link. So you have that. Then if you want to see college application, just what does a college essay look like? I like the collection Johns Hopkins essays that worked. Just Google that, Johns Hopkins essays that worked, and you'll get at least, so there's a whole list. I think it's 41 essays, 43 essays, 42, something like that. But you get a whole archive. And it's helpful to see. Particularly, I like the fact that their essays include the admissions committee's feedback. A lot of universities don't include the admissions committee's feedback. So you could read an essay, some you might like, and some it's just a what just happened type of moment. And Johns Hopkins, you'll have that moment too. But at least when you read the admissions committee's feedback, you can kind of connect the dots and say, okay, I get it. I get what they were looking for. It's just not my writing style. And I've had a lot of students doing that too, where we're like, I hate this essay. And then they read the comments and realize, okay, well, at least I'm getting a pattern of what the admissions committee is looking for. Supplemental essays are usually going to be located on your college application, and some universities will put it on their website. So, as I said, applications will open August 1st. You are bound to have a couple universities who will release their topics early. So, if you finish your college essay, and we'll divide this out on the timeline, but there will always be work to do. You're not just sitting around waiting for someone to release information so that you can now start working on it. No break, just kidding. Before that, so we'll do interviews, we'll talk deadlines, and then we're going to go into the actual timeline. So interviews, the policy varies by university. It could be in person, could be an alumni interview, on video, or in person. I've had students who met at, let's say, the Fairfield Library. They met at a library, they met at coffee shops. Sometimes it's a friend's parent who is the alumni interviewing them. So that's happened, and small town benefits. But sometimes it's just on video. It's a Zoom call, it's a Skype call, it's a FaceTime. Questions, they're similar to job questions. So tell us about yourself. Why are you interested in this particular university? Strengths, weaknesses. Now, these are interview questions from someone who's not experienced. So some universities will have the first tier, or the interviewers are actually just current students who work for the admissions department, and they'll just pull the standard. And an experienced interviewer is going to turn this into a conversation. You're not even going to realize the time went by, or your teenager's not going to realize the time went by. They're going to make sure your teenager is comfortable, and they're going to ask them about their interest, etc. The purpose is simply to figure out if your teenager would be happy at the university's atmosphere, because every university is trying to design a vibe, right? And that's why when you go on college tours, you have a certain feeling about some university and not so great feelings about others, is because the university is intentionally trying to design this atmosphere, and maybe that fits for you, maybe it doesn't. And the interviewer is also trying to gauge, hey, would you be happy, or this teenager, will that teenager be happy in this atmosphere? And sometimes the answer is yes, and sometimes the answer is no. So just something to note. There's no right or wrong answer. You do want to be honest. You also want to make sure you're not rambling. So make sure you practice. Always create a story bank. So have a list of 10 stories of examples of obstacles, strengths, weaknesses, teamwork, leadership that you can pull from. Okay. And then admission cycles. So early action, I tend to remember this as I acted early. So not binding. I was on top of it. So I acted early. So not binding. Early decision. I've decided no other university but you. So early decision is binding. We have regular and we have rolling admissions. Okay, which rolling admissions means that it's an ongoing application cycle between, let's say, the months of September through March, and you can apply at any point in between. The university will let you know their decision about 4 to 6 weeks after you have submitted your application. So if a university you are genuinely interested in has rolling admissions, or how we played it last year with one of my other students is we actually just had her apply. It was a university she's interested in. She applied in September. She knew by mid-October that she got in. She hadn't even submit her other applications yet, because we were going to do that October 15th. We got all our applications. Actually, all of my students pretty much finished their applications early, like October 15th early, October 15th to October 20th. We just submitted everything early because they were done. They were on top of it. We checked everything off. And because she'd followed that process, she knew she got into a university that was the shortest waiting time she had for that anxiety and sense of security. She knew she got into Auburn, and then she could play the game now. There was low risk. She can send in all the other applications. Usually she found out for most of them between December and January, but she had more time to think about the acceptances that she'd gotten. And that helps, because now there's no anxiety. One of the reasons for anxiety in this process is because we're so scared we're not going to get in anywhere. So now it's very helpful to, so it's really helpful for the universities or for the students to just have something on file for themselves. All right, the next thing. So I do recommend acting early, and we're not going to click on this link now just with respect to time, but you would see that the early decision students was a 52% acceptance rate. or 52% of the student body, correction on there, 52% of the student body was consisted of the early people. There are most universities, I would say, a lot of universities, particularly the top tier universities, have significantly higher acceptance rates for their early action and early decision cycles than they do for their regular. So Duke, as an example, has like a 6.7 acceptance rate for their regular and then has a 13% acceptance rate for their early action. All right. Chances of getting deferred can be lower because if you are already a strong candidate for that university, what they'll do is they'll defer you, which means they'll take your application from the early pile and put it in the regular cycle pile. So you get two chances at the same university. All right. And in between, you can advocate for yourself and send in an update and so on. But you now get two chances at the university. And then you have a higher potential for scholarships because the university still has their full budget. So they have the money to distribute at that point. I'm moving a little bit faster, but we're almost done. Mostly because I scheduled this up on Zoom, and I'm hoping Zoom doesn't just automatically cut me out at 8:30. But if it does, sorry. And I'll send this to everybody. But let's go through this. I highly recommend that everybody in this call, we take care of our college essay stuff starting late June to basically just get everything done over the summer. Now, by mid-July, ideally, it'd be nice to be done with your college essay, or at least mostly done, or you have a draft that's just sitting there and you need to you take a breather before you look at it again because you're going crazy looking at it now and you can't even tell what the flaws are anymore, which that happens. And sometimes I get too close to the essay too because I know what your teenager intended to say, and therefore I start seeing that messaging in there too. And then someone else reads it and says, yeah, this little paragraph is messed up, that kind of thing. So give it time. You want to take some space away from it too. Supplementals, again, applications open August 1st. I just recommend doing as much as possible in this time frame, including the resume, extracurricular, just writing up your activities and all of that. Then follow up with your teachers here for your recommendations. So just hey, Mr. Miss So-and-so, I wanted to check in to see that if you needed something from me to complete my recommendation, right? It's a gentle nudge. Then you can start following up every 2 weeks. And note about testing, you can test up until the month your application is due. So if deadline is November 1st and the exam is, let's say, November 4th, that's okay. The downside is that you will have to submit your scores directly to the university. So you might be familiar with this if you registered and paid for an exam. If you did the in-school exam, you did not go through this process. But if you go to the ACT or SAT websites and you're paying for it, registering yourselves, you'll get an option of 4 free score reports because otherwise you have to pay for the score reports. It's just like $15, $18, depending on which exam you're talking about. But you get 4 free score reports. And if you choose that free option, then when the scores come out, the university will be automatically sent the report when the scores come out. So you will find out your scores and the university will find out your scores around the same time. Okay, so there's something to be aware of. Now, again, if we don't finish this today, it's okay. And I'm just saying that with respect to the time. And again, if Zoom cuts me off, because I'm going to be emailing just at least once a week, probably. We're going to be doing these calls more often now because I really do want to get a hang of not relying on the libraries. And because, we want to make sure you're getting everything you need from this. So we don't worry about not getting enough information out of this. Common deadlines for early action, early decision, October 15th, November 1st, November 15th. All right. And you'll find out usually around December. If you find out around December, you still have until May 1st to decide. So you can always apply early to a few universities, wait to see what you hear back, apply regular, which tends to be, that varies. That's really all over the place. It could be January, it could be February, it could be December. You can hear back March, April, and then see basically based on the financial packages you get, which university you would like to go to. Okay, but applying early is the approach I take because you saw there were a lot of advantages to it. Fewer students apply, they're usually procrastinating. So you're competing with fewer people. And my approach is just, we try to get everything done mid-October. You submit things at least 2 weeks prior to the deadline before the rush of application comes in for even the earlies. And then we wait. but this is the shortest point of anxiety. So that's the nice part is this period right here, once you send in the application and you find out, is like a 2-month period, as opposed to if you apply in November, December, January, and then you have to wait all this time. And in the meantime, you spent the first semester being anxious about this college stuff. And then you finally send in your application and find out. So this is where the biggest period of just mental peace comes from. And that way, if your teenager comes to you and says, my friend is going to so-and-so, or if you hear that, hey, there's a surprise university I hadn't thought of before, and we want to add it, and that university has supplementals to it, an application, just really, it's going to be the supplementals that add to the workload at that point, because you've taken care of everything else over the summer. So if that happens, then your teenager has time to complete a legitimate application, that it's not just a BS thing to send off to the university because the deadline's coming up and there's too much to do. Remember, your teenager still has to keep up their grades. They still have to keep up their extracurricular activities. That's not an option. The projects need to get done, the tests need to be done, homework needs to get done, all of that. Now, financial aid, this is so messy because FAFSA has been weird with their deadlines. Usually it's October 1st that the applications open. And I'm actually just going to keep it to that. And I will keep you posted on the changes. It's so cool to say that, because usually with library presentations, I'd be like, if you, sign up for my mailing list, I'll let you know. But with everyone here, I will just let you know what's happening, because FAFSA was a mess, has been weird for the last 2 years. And then CSS Profile from College Board is a paid application, and that one always opens October 1st. Now, figure out and fill out your financial aid forms as soon as possible. You'll just need your tax returns from that year. And then once January hits, and then you can do your taxes, make sure you take care of your taxes as early as possible so that you can go ahead and update your forms before everybody else does. Oops, let's not do that. And let's make sure I address all the questions before I kind of do okay. Interesting question in the chat. Important. When it comes to your grades, are we using the transcripts up through junior year and not including the first quarter of your senior year? So if you are submitting your application in October, chances are the first quarter is probably just about to end, or it's about to end in early November type of thing. So before the university has made a decision, but before actual grades have come out. And that's okay, because this is why I say we have to start early, because there are moving pieces that we still have to keep track of. So if all the writing stuff is done, your teenager can focus on, did I send in my first quarter grades? Because application was sent in or is about to be sent in, and now I need to follow up and make sure that I'm sending in my first quarter grades. Then what's going to happen is some of these universities, even if you were already accepted, would also like your mid-year reports. So after the midterms are over, depending on, basically, I think most of us here have them in January, but whenever the midterms are over, your teenager has to send in the mid-year reports to all of those universities that they were accepted to, unless they've made that one choice already based on previous acceptance decisions. Then at the end of the school year, so now all the seniors, once they finish their finals and have their final grades, are going to have to send in their transcripts to the one university that they're applying to. And to expand upon the grades thing, yes, you will be judged mostly off of your up to junior year grades if you're applying early, because again, the year hasn't passed. We're barely into the school year. And that's why in the beginning, when we started this presentation, I said, your grades matter. Your grades matter, and make sure that you end this year strong. And even in the monthly priorities email, I was like, you need to end this year strong. This is why. Because yes, you could be applying only with up until junior year grades, and then you may be sending in your first quarter grades after the fact, after the application has already gone in. Or the application goes in, but we don't have your mid-year grades yet. That's a rare, especially if you're applying early action, early decision, zero chance of your mid-year grades actually coming in because the timeline doesn't match. So yes, it's going to be mostly up until junior year, and then it'll be the classes that you've chosen to take in senior year. All right. Any other questions on this? And keep the questions coming. And at this point, feel free to unmute yourself if it's faster than sitting there and typing everything. Whatever works for you. And good to know. So if I schedule a Zoom call, they're not going to kick me out automatically. With my students, I mean, they're teenagers. I just send the Zoom link 5 minutes before our call time, and that way it doesn't get lost in their emails and they can't say that they never got it. Um, okay, scholarships. So, are there good scholarships website to visit? And can we start now? Yes, you can actually start as early as ninth grade. So, scholarships website are scholarships.com. And I do believe I have this written. I've sent this out on previous priorities list, but it depends on which ones are you might have seen. Scholarships.com is a good one. Let me actually, I'm going to copy and paste these into the chat to make it a little easier for you. And then FastWeb is another one. You will have to create accounts. So just be mindful of that. And it's okay. Just know there should be no financial information or social security information going into these. I mean, these don't ask for them, but in any scholarship. So that's just a potential scam to be aware of. And then which there's like, oh, Niche is a good one. And College Board also has a good one. So these are all databases. So you will be seeing the same scholarship show up in multiple locations. Just make sure you apply the one time because you do not want to get disqualified for multiple entries. And yes, you will have to create accounts and keep track of the passwords, but these guys will also email you once you've created the passwords or the profiles. These guys will actually email you with scholarships that you would match with. So you don't have to filter through thousands and thousands of scholarships. They'll match it based on your interest, career interest, leadership, community service, grades, SAT scores, basically whatever you provide, they will figure out what is best suitable for you. And then I said College Board scholarship. The College Board's so used to looking at the college list, but their college search. Let's see. Oh, there we go. And you'll have to sign in to some of these. College Board, every teenager at this point has an account because of PSATs, even if you've been taking ACTs and haven't taken the SAT. If you've taken the PSATs at any point, you have a College Board account. All right. So you just search now. And again, it's a full database. So, and there's all types of scholarships from corporations to nonprofits to small businesses, basically anybody. And oh, the date for August SAT registration, I don't think, thing is, I've looked it up, but they don't release it. We have the dates for when the exam is, but not when the registration opens just yet. But I do believe they'll open right as soon as this SAT ends. It's usually in June. I believe it's in June. But please, 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 if you are planning to take actually, yeah, I'm talking to rising seniors and parents. You need to register on the day of or the first week that the August SAT opens because this exam fills up fast. And I have had students do this. They either completely forget to do it, or they're like, my mom will take care of it, etc., which not the best move because I try to get my teenagers to just, they have to take care of it. It's their process. But whatever happens, these exams fill up fast. Okay. And that's because there are fewer seats for the August SAT, and you will have the rising seniors testing and possibly even the rising juniors testing. So you still have thousands upon thousands of people testing across the country, but there are fewer slots available. So if you want this exam, you need to register ideally in the first 2 days just to guarantee that you are getting a spot, but definitely by the first week because usually the exam just closes out, fills up within the first 2 weeks of registration, which not the case for all the other exams, but for that specific one, it is that competitive. So please note that. And once I find out, I'll also try to email you when registration opens up. But yes, please, please, please make sure you register because that is a risk, particularly every rising senior is taking with their registration process. All right, any other questions on anything we've talked about? It's bedtime, but I feel so wired after these. Okay, you know what? In that case, if you do think of a question, again, you know my email, just hit reply in any of the emails I send out. I will be more in touch with everybody this summer simply because I want to help you move forward with your process. And if you would like one-on-one, then once again, just shoot me an email and we can talk about your schedule, etc. Or if you just want to have a talk, if you just want to do the free consult and make sure that you're on the right track, that's fine too. Okay. There are no strings attached on any of this. Legitimately, the idea is to make sure that you are feeling confident about your process, that you and your teenager and are happy with wherever you end up with the college list that happens, every component of this, that there's as low stress as possible. So if at any point you have any questions, just shoot me an email. I love it when I send out an email and people just hit reply and actually respond, because I don't think we're used to doing that. I do read every email. So if you respond, I do read it. I do respond. Um, okay. So in that case, everyone, thank you so much for coming. And like I said, if you do have any questions along the way, just shoot me an email. I used to have my phone number on there until I realized I was going to record this call and it can go online or the video would be distributed, could be distributed. And then I didn't want to lose my phone number. But